Hi, this is Professor Raymond. I wanted to give you some instructions on how to get started on the diet exercise for lab. This is going to take some time. You're going to have to be working on this over a 48-hour period. So 2 full days. You're going to want to make sure that you choose a time that is fairly representative of what you eat and what your activity is. So there are 3 parts of this, and you have to do all 3 of them in the same 48 hours in order for the data to really be useful. So think carefully about which 48 hours you want to do. You may want to get started on this today since you didn't have to go to school and you're looking for something to do, right? Anyway, for caloric intake, there are lots of different online tools that you can use. I want to show you how one of them works. This one's called Spark People, and what I'll do is just go into sparkpeople.com, and let me move my picture down here a little bit. I'm actually already signed in, so let me sign out so you can see what it would look like. So if you just signed in for the first time, then you might have to start up your new account. I'm going to go in and log in. Now, this does a lot of different things, but the thing that I want you to use is under My Trackers, and it's called My Nutrition. So going there, it starts up with today and what did you eat. So if I was going to start adding in my food from breakfast, I could say, well, let's see, I had bacon, and there are several possible things in here. I'm just going to do plain old bacon. Wonder if they have any that isn't microwaved. All kinds of crazy bacon choices. Most of them from fast food restaurants. It looks like they don't have it listed the way it's normally made. I'll pick the one that says microwaved, even though I would never microwave bacon. And so what I ate was about 1/3 of a pound of bacon. So I'm going to put in 0.33. So I chose yield from 1 pound. I could have chosen a number of slices, but that's not the way I did it. I actually cooked a whole pound of bacon and shared it between 3 people. Next, I'm going to add in my eggs. And they were fried eggs, and I had 3, and they were large. I could choose other sizes. Gonna add that in. And I actually fried those eggs in some lard. So I'm gonna get the lard. And it was probably about half a tablespoon of lard. So as you look on this chart, you can see it gives calories, but it'll also give grams of carbohydrate, grams of fat, grams of protein, and it gives me a total for breakfast. It also has some goals here that it set for me. Those goals are not necessarily ones that I believe in. They were set for me by the folks at Spark People. But it does give a convenient way of adding in all of that data. Now, let me show you one that I did for a full day a few years ago. I'll just switch to it. So by changing my tracking date, I can go back to this sample one that I did. It was several years back. And the one I want is the 4th. Okay, so on this day, what I ate was a recipe. So when you're doing a recipe, you have to sort of add each individual ingredient. So you can see here leeks and sweet peppers and eggs and lard, and there was a Polish pork sausage and celery. Now, the amounts that I have on here are all 1/4 of what the total recipe was, because I made this whole recipe and then I shared it for breakfast with other people, and the total amount that I ate was 1/4 of the whole thing. And so that's how I came up with these numbers that you see in the amounts. For lunch, I had, just sitting at my desk, some things that I could carry easily, some Greek yogurt, some venison bologna. At dinner, I had some pork loin with gravy that had been left over from turkey gravy that I had made for Thanksgiving, or not Thanksgiving, Christmas. I also had some Brussels sprouts and green beans. The broccoli was covered with cheese, which is why you see the cheese in here. And there were also some snacks, including a healthy dose of whiskey that day, rye whiskey to be exact. What I want you to see here is under the totals. You can see the total calories and my and the amount of grams of carbohydrate, fat, and protein. But rather than just grams of carbohydrate, fat, and protein, I want you to calculate the percentage of your calories that comes from carbohydrate, fat, and protein. Now, this can be done automatically for you by Spark People by going down here under Reports where it says Today's Full Report. And you'll notice now I've got not only calories and fat, carbohydrates, and protein, I've also got some other things that I asked it to keep track of for me. Potassium, calcium, sodium, magnesium, iron, vitamin C, copper. These were things that I was particularly interested in when I put this together. And you can add as many things. You can customize this report to make it track what you want it to track. It gives me my totals for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, snack 1, snack 2, but also down here it gives me a calculation. The total percentage of my calories that come from fat was 65.5%, from protein was 21.6%, and from carbohydrate was 12.9%. Now, this might seem like an extreme amount of fat, but this is exactly what I was going for in this particular diet. I was trying to get the majority of my calories from fat in order to force my body into ketogenesis, and I was doing that specifically as part of a diet that I do for diabetes. This may or may not be appropriate for you, but it's something that works well for helping me control my blood sugar, so that's why I was doing that. Anyway, this final result is an important one. Let me show you a different day on the 5th. And I'm still in this report. This day was bacon and eggs and fried in lard for breakfast. I had some tuna and green beans and broccoli and kimchi, one of my favorite foods, for dinner. I also had some rye that day, and I had some beef jerky as a snack at one point. Notice that my percentage of fat was slightly lower, but still overwhelmingly getting my calories from fat. So on both of these days, I had pretty much what I was aiming for. Notice how far that is from what Spark People is suggesting that I eat. I don't happen to agree with their suggestions in this case, and you may or may not agree with their suggestions. We'll talk about that some more in class. So remember, when you are trying to do this, you'll want to start out under My Trackers, go to My Nutrition. And this is where you will get a place to start filling in. Make sure you include everything that you eat or drink. But when you are ready for the data, go down here under Reports to Today's Full Report. And it's this full report that you should print and bring into class when we go over the data on the second week. I can switch this way just to go to the dates that we looked at before. Right? So those reports, once they're in there, are in there for good. Now, in addition to your calorie intake, you're also going to need to do your calorie expenditure. Now, the calorie expenditure calculation is kind of complicated, and I'm going to go through the calculation in lab when we get there. But before then, it's very important to record everything that you do and for how long you do it. So record start and stop times and total minutes for each thing that you do, and write down what you do so that you can later on figure out how vigorous an activity that was. It's important to separate things like lying down, watching TV, which is all kind of basal, from more like active sitting and reading and studying, from standing and doing things like dishwashing, cooking, laundry, walking if you're actually using it for transportation, getting somewhere a distance away, or if there's actual vigorous exercise. You're at the end of the 48 hours, you should have all 48 hours accounted for in terms of energy expenditure. So record that carefully. Now, for body temperature, you're going to need to take your body temperature with a thermometer. Oral thermometer is fine. It doesn't have to be rectal. You can use one of the ear thermometers or one of the ones that uses infrared that you do across the forehead. Just make sure you use the same thermometer for each one throughout. And you're going to want to take your body temperature every 4 hours for that entire 48-hour period. It's very important that you not miss any of those times, and since it's every 4 hours, that means you are going to have to wake up during the night and get a body temperature at night. Ideally, you want to do that without getting yourself too much awake. because the level of stimulation in your body is going to affect temperature, and getting sleep temperatures is really important to help us figure out what's going on in your body. If you can get somebody else to take your temperature while you're asleep and disturb you as little as possible, that would be ideal. So if you can go ahead and start collecting all of that data, that will put you a little bit ahead of the game and make it a little easier for us to not get too far behind this first week. Thank you.